Getting started, the first thing you want to do once you've got your account set up for you is to go to sign in and get yourself signed in. And when you get signed in, you'll be brought straight through to this really helpful dashboard. Please do take time to look through some of these fantastic resources. The Teaching Getting Started guide's really good here. If you've got any safeguarding responsibilities, if you're the admin, then please do read this one here. And if you're a safeguarding user, please do read this one here. So one of the first things you might want to do is sort of explore the areas down the side over here. The dashboard will always bring you back to here. You have your sites in here, your classes will be in here. If you have safeguarding responsibilities, then your safeguarding things will be inside here. We'll explore that later. And then you've got your frequently asked questions and opportunities for getting in touch with us through contact. One of the first things you might want to do, though, is go over to this little icon here in the top right-hand corner. Go into here and go into settings, and you'll see you've got straight away some really helpful options to help you get things set up as you would like for yourself. So one thing you might have to do straight off the go is to change your theme. It might be you prefer different colors. It might be that you need to have a dark mode for reducing eye strain or for a whole bunch of other reasons. You can give yourself a title and a name in here. Your role should already be in there set up for you. You can see this user's got a teacher and safeguarding admin role. You can put in your job title, and if you don't like what you've got there, simply click onto the edit icon here and you can type in what you want. You can choose your default language, your email address you can pop in here, and your phone number in there should you want to, and the site that you're attached to will be listed at the bottom here. So that's sort of getting started, menu navigation, and initial setup for teachers and educators using classroom.cloud. Diving a bit deeper into these options here on the left hand side now, when we click onto sites, you'll see the number of sites that are listed for you to have access to, and we've got just one, but if there's more, then you'll see those listed across here, and you can change those using the view options here. So you've got a list view here, or you have the other view like this here. And if you then go into here, you'll then see you have more information around safeguarding groups and settings. We'll look at that later. In My Classes, we'll see you've got classes within your site, and you choose your site, and you'll then see your classes in here like so. Then if you go into safeguarding, we've then got concerns and phrase matches. You can choose those from here, or you can choose them from the list here. And if you click onto FAQ, it'll open up a new tab, and you can access the frequently asked questions on the classroom.cloud website. Lots of useful, helpful information in here. Diving straight back in, if you click onto contact, it opens up another tab, and in here you'll see all of the useful contact information for classroom.cloud. Your My Classes view is a lovely area where you get to see all of the classes you have already set up, but you can do an awful lot more. Let's start by thinking about actually rearranging these classes we've got here. It might be we want to group them slightly differently. It's very easy to do. We simply click on the class we want to move, and we can just drag it to wherever we want to have it placed. If you don't like this view, over here we've got the opportunity to change from this view through to a list view where you can see more information about your class as well. You can also perform some actions by clicking onto these options here where you can edit your class, or you can even delete it should you want to. You can even click onto the option here with a cog to manage the columns. Okay, so you can rearrange those, add new columns if you want to. Reset them if they've been changed in any way, shape or form. When you're done, you'd simply hit save, or if you don't want to save those things, simply hit cancel. You can also filter your classes. So if you click onto filters, you've got a variety of options in here, from when they were last used to subjects to the way in which they've been connected here. A lovely feature, let's say you've got a cover lesson, you want to bring some pupils into your classroom.cloud environment and want to do so quickly on the fly. You can do that in a variety of ways. If they've got personal devices, for example, by going to add class, you could actually choose a connection type where you give them a class code and can bring them through. If you're in a specific room, you could potentially use a device group or a device list, or even a student list. The student list option requires you to put in their email addresses. But let's just say I wanted to do it by device group because I'm in a specific room. I go in here, I give it a name, so let's call it, I'll type in Year 7 Computing, but let's change it to Year 8 Computing, for example. I can pop in a quick description. We'll call this just example for now. Select the device group, and I've got one for the computer room 1 that I'm in right now. In your setting, you might have more. Choose the option here, choose the related subject, and the choice of subject is important, okay, because based upon the choice you see here, will depend on the icon then you see in the main view through here. So let's just choose history for a second. Let's change that to say history instead, just so it's in keeping with what it is that we're doing. And hit add, like so. And the class has now been brought through here. If I change it to this view, you'll see that the iconography is different because I've chosen, and it's related to the subject. The iconography is changed. And remember, we can always move that around if you want to, for whatever reason you might have for moving things around on your screen in the My Classes area here. If you've got lots and lots and lots of classes, you can also choose to search your classes based upon a keyword or a class code or whatever it is you wanted to search through there. So that is how you navigate through your My Classes area on classroom.cloud. So now that we've covered the basics, let's have a little dive into one of my classes. So let's jump into my Year 7 computing class. And by double clicking onto that class, it then loads it up. Takes a few seconds, and you'll now see my students' devices starting to connect and come through, so I can see all of their different machines. Now, there are lots of things going on here. We'll dive into all of these features and options across the top here during the course of the next little while. But this is basically where we get to see everything. So let's just have a little look at some of these options that are over here on the side. Okay, this will help us to sort of work with the space that we've actually got. So the first thing we can do is we can actually make these thumbnails larger. So simply clicking on that icon will then make those thumbnails larger so you can sort of see what's going on a bit more clearly. Press the minus button or the minus magnifying glass there, and that will then make them a little bit smaller, so we can make them bigger and smaller like so. What we could also do is choose an auto fit option. This one here will just scale the whole lot to fit the viewable area that you've actually got. This one here, super useful when you're trying to do lots of things to a big group of your students in one go, is to simply click on that, and that will select all of your students like so. Click it again and it will deselect them. Over here we've got the opportunity to change the view as well. So you've got, if you just sort of keep clicking on it, we can rotate through those views. Okay, now we do have a lot of information. When we're hovering over one of our machines here, we can get into some right-click options, and we'll, again, look at what these shortcuts here are in just a bit. We get more information in different views. So here we can see sort of connectivity that they've got. Click again. We can then see any rewards they might have had, their device name as well as their name. You can see things relating to statuses, but they might have got the hand up, so forth and so on. Again, we'll look at these in more detail later on. Okay, so you can see the type of connection they have. You can see whether they're on power or battery, whether they've got access to the internet or not, so forth and so on through here. And click again onto here on there, and it brings you straight back round to that first view just again. If you click onto one student as well, you can select sort of specific students by just ticking them like so. You'll have noticed this end icon was actually grayed out until I actually started selecting some students. That's because, let's say you needed to, for whatever reason, remove a student from your class. You'd select them like so and then click onto here, and that would remove them. Okay. When you want to end your class and disconnect from them, moving on to a new class, let's say, you simply click onto end class like so, and that will end the class once you've hit confirm like so. So as you can see on my screen, it's really lovely that I can see all of the names of all of my students in my classroom. But what if I've actually set up my class in a different way where it doesn't pull through those student names? Don't worry, we've got you covered. The very first option on your toolbar here is Get Student Names. If you click onto that option, you'll then notice there's a little pop-up appeared on each of these screens here. Let me just zoom in so you can see what's going on here. And what it's doing is basically asking the students, please enter your name. They enter their name like so, they hit OK, and that name then appears like the name has appeared just here on each of these ones here. Let's say that all of your students have done all of that, but a few have come up on devices, let's say, that were still logged in from the previous lesson that you had forgotten to log out. Don't worry, we can click back on to Get Student Names, and it removes that from any screens that haven't already been cleared. That's a nice, simple, easy way to collect in the names of your students in your classroom to help you see which device is being used by which students inside your classroom. Now we're going to look at one of my absolute favourite features, and it's probably the simplest actually. But one of the best things you can do with classroom.cloud is grab the attention of the students in your classroom, and it's such a simple thing to do. If you want to grab the attention of your entire class, then it's just a case of going up to the lock icon like so. Click onto it and you'll spot straight away that all of the screens get a lock on it. You might hear all of your students make a noise that goes a bit like "aww," but it is brilliant for focusing attention straight back onto you whenever you need to. Sometimes that might actually be in a real emergency situation. Sometimes it could be for you to get their attention back onto you for a point around learning or teaching. Either which way, really super quick and easy to do. Let's say you want to then allow your students to carry on, then simply hit the unlock icon here on the toolbar, and it will then unlock all of their devices. Now, let's just say that one of your students, or perhaps a group of your students, are being a little bit off task, shall we say, and you want to just grab their attention. Okay, you can just click onto the option here and here. And here, let's say these three students are being particularly off task. Hit the lock function and it will only lock their screens. Note when you do lock a screen, you do see the lock icon appear at the bottom on the thumbnail view as well. And again, then just to unlock those, you would then just do that. Let's say, for argument's sake as well, then you've actually spotted that just one of your students is being a little bit off task. Let's say it's this Ali Simmons here. An alternative way of doing it than just clicking on there and then click on the lock, we do have a whole load of little power moves by right clicking on, and you can just choose lock like so. You can see the lock has appeared here before the thumbnail is refreshed actually, but you can see it's locked there. In my classroom, what I would do is I would lock the screen and then go and have a little quiet word with that student, not drawing any big attention to anything going on around the room, not to distract other students, but just a lovely little way of letting them know you've found what they're doing and you're going over to have a little chat. But yeah, the lock feature and unlock feature, a super powerful way of promoting self-regulation, getting students to focus exactly when you want it, and saving lost time inside your classroom. Time is super precious in every classroom, and so one of my absolute favourite features inside classroom.cloud is that of quick launch. represented aptly by a rocket icon just here. Quick launch helps save time inside the classroom super easily. Gone are the days where you would ask students to load a particular app or ask them to go to a specific website. You'd write the URL on the board, and about a year later students would get to it. With Quick Launch, those days are gone. To access Quick Launch, we simply click on the icon just here, and you can pre-populate your URLs or apps you want students to open really quickly through using the plus button for each of them. URLs is just there, and apps is just here. You can even type a URL quickly up here if you want to. If you found a resource and want students to see it all at the same time, just pop it in there, and then just go to the launch button, which you can see is grayed out here at the moment. But let's say I want to open this resource on all of my students' devices. It's so easy. We click on it on our list, we go to launch, and then as if by magic, you'll start to see it appearing on all of their screens around the room. And here we have a PDF resource that all of my students are going to use, and it's taken me like such a short period of time, and everyone's straight on, no time wasted, absolutely brilliant. Check out Quick Launch on classroom.cloud. Now, we've talked previously about the quick launch feature and how impactful that can be, but we can actually help in further ways, particularly through the app and web monitoring feature here. Now, it is called monitoring, and for sure, part of it is about monitoring what students are doing. So if I go into app monitoring, we can see that Ali's using OneNote and Annie's on voice recorder, and he's got 3 apps open at the moment, not just voice recorder, but OneNote and a PDF inside Google Chrome. Absolutely brilliant. And if we are using it as a monitoring tool, if we were to see a student actually having a tool open here that they shouldn't have, we could just right click on it and just close it. Or if it's something that's useful for all, we could add it to our approved list. And that's what I'm going to dive into in a bit more detail right now. So when we moved into the app monitoring view, you'll have noticed maybe that there are some extra thumbnails just up here on the top right hand side, and these are all linked into app monitoring and supporting the use of apps within the tool. So to manage apps, simply go to the manage icon just here. Looks like a settings icon, obviously. If we click onto here, we then get these options up here down the bottom, and what we can do is we can choose to have some approved apps and restricted apps. By doing this, what we can do is make it so that students can only access these apps when they're using their device. If they try and open something else, then you get a little message which tells them no, they're not allowed to use that particular tool. I'm just going to deselect that student there a second. So to add in an approved or a restricted app is very simple. We would just go into the plus button here, and if it's in the Windows Store, it's listed when we go into Store Application, and there they all are. We can just choose from those, select the one you want, and then click on to add. Alternatively, if you know the file name, including the extension, we can also go into here and type desktop application, and let's say it was excel.exe, then we could type that in there and then add it in the same way as we just saw with the store apps, and that will then appear in your list like this. The same process takes place with the restricted apps over here, so you can choose from store and desktop application and type it in as how you want it to through there. So that gets it all set up, but how do you actually then make it so things are approved and or blocked? So that's where these other icons up here come into play. So let me just turn the manage section off just here. And so what I can do is I can make it so that completely unrestricted. Students can use whatever it is that they want. Okay. If I want to make it so they're focused, and this links into the student toolbar. We saw it earlier actually with those 2 tools, the Word and Chrome options being allowed. If I go to approved only, and this will have an impact on all these as well because we've got voice recorder and OneNote already open and things, but if I choose approved only, first of all we'll notice that a little sort of shield with a tick on it happens here, and then we'll notice that things change throughout here as well. So it's all now just these things here. And if I dive into one of my students, let's go to thumbnails view a second here. Okay, what we should be able to see is on some of the devices, there we go, this application has been restricted. Microsoft Edge. Okay, brilliant stuff. Okay, so now inside classroom.cloud we've only got our allowed apps, and our allowed apps, as you remember from manage, are these in the list here: Chrome and Word, and all of these are the ones that were open previously, like OneNote and Voice Recorder and all that, have been closed. Now with great power comes great responsibility. You might want to make sure, we had so many students using OneNote beforehand, you might want to make sure everyone's saved and got everything as you want to before you choose to do all of this. Be careful, be mindful, but also recognize that if you want to do things at a granular level, you can too. So you can just select certain students and have only approved apps for certain students. You could break it down further by using the group tabs that you've got here across the top. So it could be that you only want these ones or this group here, for example, so forth and so on. So that's how you set up app monitoring, and with the sort of approved and block restricted options in here through managing those different apps. The setup for web monitoring is very, very similar. Okay, so we're still on group 2, so I'll just go to all here a second. Okay, and as you'll see, we've got a very similar set of icons here as well. So you've got unrestricted access to the internet. It's not completely unrestricted. This is unrestricted within the framework of your firewall setting within your school. But in a kicksy world where we want to keep children safe in education, why wouldn't we? Of course we would. You may want to, again, only allow certain websites, and it certainly helps keep learners focused on the tasks they're supposed to be focused on. So you can approve, you can block any restricted ones, you can block absolutely everything, so there's no access to the internet whatsoever, and you manage all of that as before through the Manage tab just here. And what you can do is you can, as before, go to the plus button and pop in the URL, similarly to how we did before with the apps, but this time we're working with web content. So put in the URL, put in the description. This is super useful for when students are viewing these things within their student toolbar as well. It will categorize them based upon the description you give. So maybe link it to presentation or tool or resource, something like that. And based upon the domain name, this field here will automatically be filled in straight away. Okay, so let's say I'll put in netsupportsoftware.com. So I'll put in the full address, https://netsupportsoftware.com. I'll put in resource, and we can see it's automatically popped in the domain like so. Hit save, and that's now added to the approved list here. So if I tick approved only the approved resources would then, or websites would then be available to students in your class. Anything you've got on your restricted list here, if you had some in there, when you do block restricted, would be there. And if you choose block all, that will block the access to the internet for all of your students in the class. Equally, you can, at a granular level, like before with app monitoring, selectively filter and then block or allow for specific students. Equally, to help with this, you can still use your tabbed groups across the top here. So that is how you manage app monitoring and web monitoring in classroom.cloud. Let's just dive into for a second though and see how this impacts on learners through their student toolbar. So I'm just going to go to approved only for a second. Okay, and on here I'm going to go to approved only. I think it's already there actually there, so that's great. Okay, so I'm just going to go into thumbnails and I'm going to jump on to, let's say, Annie here. So a few things have happened straight away. Okay, so approved resources are listed here straight away. We saw this earlier when we were looking at the student toolbar. Okay, if I just go on to remote control a second. On here now, applications, we can see the allowed applications, and what's nice is I can click on these and these will open these for students as well. Equally, the resources will appear in the list here, and this is where that heading, activity, resource, that's all grouped nicely, and that the name that we gave it does appear there. Equally, we can see it should a student open their browser. It's nice to have that reference list through here as well. So that's all a knock-on effect of having used app and web monitoring inside classroom.cloud. And that's why it's more than just monitoring. It's not just about checking what students are doing. Obviously, that's important, making sure they're on task and so forth and so on. But equally, that ability to help shepherd students down the right direction, supporting their self-regulation, focusing them on the tools and resources they need to help them with their learning is a super useful tool. And that's how you do it in classroom.cloud. Now, you may have noticed, whilst we've been looking at this view in the teacher dashboard, some of the iconography underneath each of the student screens. Let's just focus on this for just a moment, and whilst it won't make them any bigger, let's just isolate these screens just a little bit by increasing the size there. Now, there's some grayed out icons here that you can't really see very well. One of these is linked to locking the screen, so if I lock it, you'll see the lock appears like so. For example, unlock it, that disappears there. Okay, the ones that you can see that are signified right now though here are linked to restrictions. These ones over here are linked to how the devices are connected. This icon here represents that this device is on mains power, and there's a battery icon when it's not, when it's being powered by battery. This here represents that this is connected via a network connection. These three here are linked to restrictions. Okay, device restrictions, and you might be able to tell from the icons what they are. This is for USB, this is for video, and this is for audio. But how do you actually get into that and control that? Well, that's in the area over here on the left hand side called device control. And for many reasons, you may choose to block USB, webcams and audio within your class. It might be for security, you might want USB blocked. It might be that you want webcams blocked for there's no need for those sorts of things to be used in your class. It might be a distraction, so you're just removing that option straight away. It might be that you don't want your learners to sort of have sounds playing on their devices for whatever reason. It might be though that you want to allow it. So how do we do that? Where does it work? All these sorts of things. Well, it's all inside device control over here. And we can do things to the restrictions and allowing certain things on a whole class or on a granular level. So let's say, for example, Ali Simmons has brought some work in on a USB stick. You've checked it out. He's gone to the network team. They've checked it for viruses. It's okay to be used. So you can just select the option here. And you'll notice some additional icons on the toolbar up here linked to this. So let's work through each of these before we allow Ali access to the USB. So you've basically got allow USB, block USB, allow webcam, block, unmute sound, and mute sound, like so. So let's say I want to allow Ali to have access to their USB. So simply allow USB, and you'll see at a granular level now, just this one has had it allowed. If you want the whole class to have things allowed, make sure nobody is selected and just choose the things you want allowed or blocked, and it will change as you work through them like so. And then on a granular level, so let's say for argument's sake that Craig has for some reason got some Teams meeting that they need to attend, chatting to an author, let's say. So you choose Craig, you want Craig to have access to their webcam and to the sound. Do that, and you can see that the webcam is now allowed and the sound is on. So we can do that at a granular level. And if you want to do it with multiples, just do a multiple select, and the same applies like that, like so. And that is how you can, at a granular level and at a whole class level, block access to USB, to webcam, and to audio. And just to reinforce that, let's just allow everything for a larger group of people. We should then see that represented in the thumbnails. So some have got, the selected ones have got things unblocked. As I scroll down, you'll see the ones that don't have it allowed still have it restricted. So you can still see, let's make it so we can see the whole class. There we go. We can see those that are allowed and not allowed at a glance within this view, while still being able to see absolutely everything else as well. And when you come to a point in time when you need to change that back, simply go back into device control and make the setting changes as you require. So that's how you can control and manage access to USB, webcam and audio in classroom.cloud. As you'll know from our conversations in earlier videos in this product walkthrough, you can view all of your student screens in one go. We can even zoom in on those to see in a bit more detail what's going on, or we could make it smaller so we can see all of them again using the plus and minus icons just up here. However, there may be occasions where you want to actually go onto a student's device to see in more detail what's going on. Sometimes a student might initiate a chat with you. That's why this little area here around the outside is flashing red, because this student has initiated a chat, and we can just see very slightly there that chat window there. Now we could access that chat by going to the chat area here on the left hand side, and we'll look at that in a bit more detail later on in these videos. But I want to jump straight onto Holly's machine and see exactly what's going on. I can do that in two main ways. I can either click onto it once and then go to the watch feature just here. Note we can't select two and go to watch is grayed out then, and note as well if no student is selected, watch is also grayed out then as well. So we would do that and then click on watch, and that would open it up. Alternatively, we can just simply double click on a student and their window then comes up, and we can see everything on their screen here. Whilst we're looking at this, it's a useful time to run through what we can do on the teacher toolbar in here. Students can't see what you've got access to just here. They have a student toolbar, and again we'll cover that soon. But let's just go through what we can do here. We can make their screen a bit bigger if we want to. We can make it a bit smaller. We can take a screenshot. We could also choose to power off their device, restart it. Let's say there's a problem, their mouse has stopped moving, the machine's frozen up. We can also choose to log them out. Let's say there's a behavior issue which requires their machine to be logged out and that student to go elsewhere for a bit. Then we can choose to log them out using these features here too. Further over on the right hand side we have three more icons. This one here is useful for remote controlling, so let's say I had to actually demonstrate something and move something around or type on the screen here with for this student. I could simply remote control, and it's now working, as you can see, by me just popping something into here. Further along we've got this option here, and this is really useful. Okay, so pressing that is the same as holding down the Windows key on your keyboard, but on their device, to enable you to do something else. Let's say Windows D for showing the desktop, whatever else you wanted to use it for, Windows Shift S, so forth and so on. Okay, so that's that option there. And then the final option, should it be needed, is to send a Control Alt and Delete command to that device for you to interact with it in that sort of a way. So that's how you remote view a student's screen, and the teacher options in a toolbar here for you to gain a bit more control and viewable area, so forth and so on, of your student's device. Please note as well, if you wanted to, you can maximize that screen like so to auto fit it to the size that you've got available to you just here. And that's how you remote control a student device using classroom.cloud. We're now going to take a moment to have a look at the student toolbar, not to be confused with the teacher toolbar we have here in the teacher dashboard with all these different options here. We'll go through that soon, don't you worry. But let's just jump onto this student here for a second. We're talking about this area across the top here, not to be confused with these options here for teachers and educators too. But let's just jump onto the remote control bit here, and let's work through the student toolbar here from left to right. The first thing you'll see is the classroom.cloud logo, which tells students that they're being monitored by classroom.cloud. Best practice in schools is to share with young people why it is you're using something like classroom.cloud with them. It's about promoting their effective use of technology to support their learning in the classroom. It helps them in lots of different ways. It means you can help give them feedback more quickly. It means that they're able to be supported. They can ask for help whenever they want it. There are many powerful reasons to promote the use of classroom.cloud with your young people, not just for self-regulation, but promoting metacognition and thinking about how they actually learn with technology in powerful ways. It's a really amazing tool. So having that icon there is a great reminder that they're being supported in their learning whilst they're using technology. Next up, we've got their name. In this case, it's Ali Simmons. And then we've got a time and date stamp. And then we have the title of the lesson and the name of the teacher. Now, the title of the lesson comes from one of the options that you can complete on the teacher toolbar called Lesson Details. We'll cover that shortly. But linking to that, in the area where you fill in the lesson title, you also fill in the student outcomes and objectives for the lesson. The students can see that in more detail by clicking onto this icon here. The objectives for the lesson appear and the outcomes appear there. It's a great little reference and reckoner and reminder for young people about what it is they're trying to actually achieve within the course of any given lesson. They can close it really easily by clicking on the X in the top right hand corner. If they want to revisit it, it's just a simple case of clicking on that icon again. Next across, there's reference to things that are allowed or disallowed within the classroom setting digitally. So as teacher, you can control whether you want your students to have access to their USB drives, whether you want to have access to audio, whether you want them to be able to use their video cameras on their devices. You can set all those things up, and there's a representation of that here on the toolbar. Next across, we have application control, and from this, when you click on it, the student can then see yes, they can use Chrome, and yes, they can use Word, and you can set all that up in the teacher dashboard over in the main screen. Next across, we have the web restrictions and allowed sites. And by completing the fields, you can give access to all of these things here. And if you were to open Chrome, not only would you have the list appearing from the toolbar here, but the list also appears in Chrome when you open it up. So if I just open this up like this, it should then appear with a list of different resources that students have access to. It's a really good way. If you've got a lot of web pages that you want students to use, specifically during the course of a lesson, then brilliant to have that set up before the lesson, so when students open up their browser, so they have that brought up, like as you can see here right now, taking them directly to the relevant resources for the lesson. Again, reducing sort of wasted time, helping students focus on core business of learning inside the lesson. Next across, we have the option, and we'll go into this in more detail shortly, about how to start a student-initiated chat. Students can click on here and start that chat. And then here they have the opportunity to request help from the teacher. This is one way they can simply just click onto the option here. They can put a message if they want to, and they can choose an alert like so, and depending on what sort of alert they choose, so the color changes what you see on the teacher dashboard. So for example, urgent help would be red, work complete would be green, so forth and so on. I'm not going to start that. That's how students would initiate a little virtual raising of the hand as well. So that's the student toolbar in classroom.cloud. Now, we love the student toolbar, but there may be an occasion where you want to hide that student toolbar away from their screens. To do this, very simple. All we need to do is go to this option here. When we hover over it with the three dots, we can see student toolbar. By selecting that, and I'll just zoom in on my students a second so you can see them on the thumbnail view. By selecting the student toolbar like so, you'll notice when it refreshes in a few seconds that a student toolbar will then disappear. There it goes. And can you notice that the icon has changed color as well to blue? So blue signifies that the toolbar is not there. Turn it on and goes red, and then the toolbar then appears. And that's how you turn the toolbar on and off in classroom.cloud. So we've previously seen what happens when a student initiates a chat, but we haven't actually seen how that happens. So in this part of the video, we're going to be looking at messaging, how you can message a student, and then looking at the teacher initiated chat with a student, and then a student initiated chat, and what all that looks like, and how you engage with it, and so forth and so on. So the first thing I want to cover is the messaging thing. Okay, so let's say this student here, Ariana, is not doing quite what they should be doing. Maybe they're off task. Maybe they just aren't. We've been watching what they're doing, and there's a few misconceptions there that need to be addressed. Either which way, we want to send a message to direct their attention either back on task or with some helpful comments. Okay, so it's super easy. We just right click onto the student like so, and then go to the option message. We click on message, and we then get a chance to enter in a message. So back on task, please. And we can put a timeout on there, so let's put, say, 15 seconds, and then we hit the send button. What we'll see just up here, which is quite small for you, so let's just zoom in just a little bit here. We can see a message has appeared at the top here on Ariana's screen, floating just under her classroom.cloud toolbar. If we go into it, we can see it's still there. And the student, if they want to, can just click on the X in the top right-hand corner. It's already timed out. Or they can click on the X in the top right-hand corner or wait for it to time out, like so. So that's how we send the message to a student like that, just to, again, divert their attention back to however we wanted it to be diverted. The other thing we can do is actually initiate a chat. That's a two-way conversation. Rather than being a one-way message, we can have a two-way conversation. So we can start that by going to the chat window just here, option here on the left-hand side, which brings us through to this view. And as in other views, you can increase and decrease the size of your viewable area for your students here. This is quite nice if students are actually engaging in some work and you want to sort of see how they're getting on. Rather than opening up each one, just make it nice and big and you can see what they're doing. Any problems, then you can just start that conversation with them. If you wanted to sort of see all of them in one go, just to make sure they are actually on task, you can make it smaller like so. Oh, and I can see that Holly Smith here is actually being a little bit off task, has managed to somehow get around my settings and isn't doing what they should be doing. So I simply click on to Holly Smith like so. They become selected, and then we'll see now on the right hand side here it now says create chat. So I can click on to create chat and I can send a message to Holly. I can say how are you getting on, just like so. Send that message, and now Holly's got a different type of sort of screen that appears to her. Let's just zoom down to where that is here. We can see it's just appeared here. If I was to go into Holly's screen, let's just do it this way, and quickly take control and imagine I am Holly. Holly can then click into here and send a message back, and you can initiate a conversation with a student that way. They can, if they want to, end that conversation whenever they want to by clicking the X in the top right hand corner. They can make it bigger, minimize it, so forth and so on. If it's in the way of their work, then they can also just sort of click on it and move it around so they can see whatever it is they want to see on their screen. And I say by minimizing it, they can return to it and open it back up and so forth and so on, repeating that process until such time as it's not needed anymore. So to close the chat, they would simply click on the X in the top right hand corner, and that would then clear, and you'll get a notification on the teacher dashboard saying student Holly Smith has left the chat session. Now, if it was a Holly, we didn't want Holly to close that chat window. At that point, you might want to actually go and physically move and speak to that student. But failing that, that's the way in which it would be closed. Now, let's say, for example, that a student wants to actually initiate that chat themselves. We've seen a similar sort of thing happen before with the pulsing red outline around a student like that. So let's say that Assad wants to ask a question. Okay, they can simply on their toolbar simply go to the chat option just here, request the chat. They do that and they send their message. I'll just put help like so and send it. And as before, on the teacher side, we see that flashing red outline. Really, really useful. It does come up with a chat, and the number here represents how many messages you've received. But the visual representation with that flash is really good and indicates you've got something that needs to be addressed and picked up on. We simply go over to chat on the side over here. We should be able to see that Assad is still flashing up here. Click onto Assad and then we get the message over here. And if we've got multiple chats going on, then you just simply click onto the different students and the chat window will sort of go to that conversation with that student, so you can move between different conversations if you've got more than one going on. So that's how you send a message to a student, perhaps to redirect their attention. That's how you start a chat with a student, and how a student would initiate a chat with you. You'll remember earlier we saw on the student toolbar that the lesson details would appear. The name of the lesson, the teacher's name, and if we take control a second, the objectives and outcome for the lesson. So how do we make it happen? How do we make this appear on the student toolbar? Well, it's super simple. All we need to do is go to the lesson details icon just here, click onto it, and fill in the details. So there's the name, the lesson title, the objectives that you want, and the outcomes, like so. And by filling that in without anything more to do, that will automatically then appear on your students' toolbars for them to be able to access. And that's how you set up lesson details in classroom.cloud. We've shared throughout these product walkthrough videos that classroom.cloud is a fantastic tool to support teaching and learning and classroom instruction. And an activity that teachers often have to engage in is one which involves picking students. Not picking on students, selecting students for a teaching and learning activity. The random select tool here on the toolbar is perfect for helping with this. You could be picking a student for some group work, or to answer a question, or for any number of different teaching and learning activities. To make it work, we simply click onto it, and we then get the options to help us with this activity. Firstly, we would choose how many students we want to be selected. So let's say we're going to do some group work, and we need 5 students to be selected for that group. We can choose whether or not to have sounds played on a student machine or on a teacher machine. And when we're ready to go, we simply hit start. When we do that, question marks will float around and appear on different student screens, including the teacher screen. And then once that's completed, the chosen students, the selected students, will have their screens selected like so. Yet another fantastic teaching and learning tool built into classroom.cloud. So a cornerstone of every classroom is feedback and assessment, and classroom.cloud has you covered with that with aplomb. Our survey tool, which you can access simply by going to the survey option on the left hand side here, has lots of options inside. Like we saw with the app monitoring and web monitoring, there are some additional icons just up here on the top right hand corner, and what you want to do is to set it all up and go into manage, and from here you can add in your own survey questions. You can see I've got some pre-populated there. To put a question in, we simply go to add, we put in the question, we put in the responses with a comma separating each of those, or you can choose one from a predefined response like this. Rather than create one and take up your valuable time, I'll just hit back now so you can see the ones that I've prepared earlier. So here's the question, here are the different responses, all separated with a comma. And if I was to run this with my class, so I'm teaching that digital citizenship lesson, if you remember, where they're learning about AI and research and how to do those things effectively, all I need to do is simply click on to start after I've chosen the question. So let's just choose this one here, what is an LLM? Hit start, and that will then appear on the student machines. And as it appears, so the students will start to answer that, and I can see straight away how many students have yet to respond. I can see the results popping up here on the screen. And whilst that's happening, my class is doing it, we all know that it's not a large lovable machine, as much as we might like. It's neither a live living machine, it is a large language model. Now, thankfully, most of my class have got that right, but 20% haven't, 32% haven't, and so the majority of the class haven't got this question correct. Classroom.cloud's got a lovely feature up here on the toolbar where I can show those results back to the class. So if I click on to show, we will now be able to see on the student screens that result shared as a pie chart, and I can then talk with my students about those areas of misconception, why they got it wrong, dive deeper into the reasons why. What's nice as well is that question stored, so if I'm thinking about retrieval beginning of my next lesson, I can always run that same question again and see whether that's been embedded into their longer term memory, just like so. When you're done, simply hit the hide button, and that will then remove that from the student screens, and you can carry on with the lesson as you wish. So we spent time running a survey with the class and looking at the predefined ones and a little bit of detail there. But I wanted to spend a second looking at the start survey option here. We didn't spend very long on it. I wanted to make sure we dive into there so we're really clear on all the various elements, because we can just do a quick survey off the hoof, as it were, if you want to. Sometimes learning goes off piece. The student asks a question, it's relevant, and you want to then check that understanding. So what we can do is actually quickly survey students by typing in a quick question. I'll just put in a very simple one. Well, actually, it could be quite deep, couldn't it? But we can pick from some predefined responses here, or we can choose a custom response if we want to. We'll just go like that, and we hit start, and that will then just run straight away with our students. We can create a new survey, which would then be saved into our list of surveys, or we could just use one of our predefined ones from this start survey option. We saw them before in the manage area and launched it that way. This is an alternative way in which we could launch those. So when you send it through, these then can be sort of picked through, and choose the question you want to ask, hit start, and away you go. Manage surveys is a great place to go for doing your surveys, not to pre-work before your lesson. The start survey option is a great place to go when you're doing things in the moment during the lesson. So most classes are quite large. Here we've got almost 30 different students in this class, and like every classroom, there's a wide variety of needs and requirements for support, and it might be you're engaging in some group activities, all these different sorts of things. So there may well be a use case where you need to group different students into different categories for whatever purpose it might be. It might be for some extra support, it might be around group work, it could be all sorts of things. Classroom Cloud has you covered though with groupings. Let's just say, for example, I wanted to have all of these students here in a particular group across the top here. Okay, I can simply go to groups like so and go to add group. That's what comes up when you first see this particular view. So I select the students I want to be in that first group. Let's call it my challenge group. Give it the name challenge, and I hit create, and I've now got my challenge group. We don't get that big option in the middle anymore. If I want to make another group, I would simply go to the plus button here, so when you hover over it, you can see it says add group. So let's create another group, and let's say this is for some group work now. So I'm going to call this group 1, and I'm just going to tick these here like so for group 1, and I go create. Okay, I'll do another group now very quickly, and let's call this one group 2, and repeat for your group work inside your class. Happy days. Hit create. Now if I hit back just here, what benefit is this giving me? Well, what I've been able to do now is create these little tabbed groups across the top here. So if I want to see my challenge group, I can simply click on challenge, and there's my challenge group all in one. It makes it much easier to then zoom in and see just those particular students. I want to see group 1, see how that activity is going. There's my group 1, there's my group 2. I want to go back to the whole class, boom, just make it a bit smaller again to fit, or I can simply go to scale to fit, just so it fits nicely like so. So that's how you really simply create different groups for a wide variety of purposes inside classroom.cloud. There are a few keyboard shortcuts inside classroom.cloud. So for example, if you wanted to select all of your students in one go, a simple Control A, just like you might do in Word, let's say, to select all text, you can select all of your students very quickly using the Control A feature. I wanted to spend a moment as well looking at this option here on the toolbar called Student Desktop. Now, we've spent some time looking at the lock and unlock feature, and the reason why you'd use these would be to, make sure student attention is diverted in the right way. But there are some slightly softer approaches we can do using the Student Desktop option just here. By selecting it, for example, we can completely clear the desktop. So it closes everything that's open on a student's machine. Equally though, we could just choose the show desktop option. Now on a Windows PC, that would be like pressing Windows and a D key to show the desktop. Does the same thing, but by pushing that same command to all of these screens in one go. So we can see there are a few things open on some devices. If I just go to the show desktop option here, that should then make it so that all of those different things then disappear on everyone's screens, and you can see that starting to come through now. So lots of little power moves inside classroom.cloud. The final one that I wanted to share with you is a simple right click. By right clicking onto a student, you do get a bunch of options that do come up. We've seen some of these already, like locking and unlocking and messaging, but you can also direct a chat straight from here. You can also choose to watch a student by right clicking on them and just choosing watch. You can give or remove a reward or even clear all of the rewards. And should there be a reason why a student needs to be, you can also remove them from your virtual class in classroom.cloud by choosing the remove tool just here. So there you go, some little power moves to help you gain even more efficiency when using classroom.cloud. In this video, we're going to look at how we can help manage student devices in the room when you need to help keep learners on track and without having to send them down to have things like passwords reset and if you're experiencing problems with logging in and so forth and so on. There's some fantastic features that when set up to work within your school can really help with all of these things. The first one we're going to explore is this one here. On the toolbar we can see the option and the icon sort of reflects what it does. It's a student with a lock next to it, and by using this tool here we can reset student passwords. So obviously you'll need to make sure this is set up in your setting in order for that to work, but again, a great time saver. Sometimes as well, some of your students might be having trouble logging on, so we can use the login feature here, and equally we can log students out as well. Sometimes as well, it might be the case that you need to remove a student from your class, and there are two ways in which we can do that. The first way is one of those power moves we saw previously, where you can right click on a student and simply remove them, like so. Alternatively, we can select the student and then go to the remove option just here in the top right hand corner. And that's how we can change passwords, log in, log out, and remove students from within inside classroom.cloud. Depending on the time of day, you may want to do some things related to either closing down the machines or at least ending the class. And there's some options built into classroom.cloud to help with both. Let's have a look first at ending the class. To do that, we would simply go to the end class option up here. You would select it and then confirm that you wanted to end the class. I won't do that right now. I will do it in just a moment. So we hit cancel for now. then it's a case that you might want to actually power your machines off at the end of a school day. It might be that you need to restart a machine as well, actually. If there's an issue with the machine, you can do that using the restart option. To power off your machines, simply click on power off and that will power them all off. And again, you'd get a confirmation like you did with the end class. And let's have a little look at how we end the class again, because we're going to end this class. So we hit end class, we confirm that, and it will then close your session and bring you straight back into your classes area inside your main teacher dashboard. There you go. In this part of the video, we're going to show something which is only available to administrators, but we felt worthwhile sharing as a possibility. So in here, we're going to learn how we can bulk power on devices. Great for saving time, great for managing your power use within your site. So to do this, we simply go to Sites, choose your site, and then look for devices in the list of options that come up. Go into devices and you'll see all of the devices that you may wish to power on. So I want to power on the ones that are in computer room 1. So I'm going to go to here just to select them all, and then the option here is to bulk power on devices. Equally, you can power them down whenever you want to, end of the day, so forth and so on. You can, if you wanted to as well, choose to include any unassigned devices if that's what you wanted. So if I press this button now, confirm, yes, and then all of those devices in that list will then power on and be available to users who have access to them in the various classes that you have. And that is how you bulk power on devices using classroom.cloud.